Hi everyone, my name is Laura Friend, and I want to share some things that I've learned from our readings. Chapter 1 is a great family life education overview. As I read this chapter, I realized that I had already read it in my Family 150 class, and I feel that this is a great foundation for the entire Marriage and Family Studies program at BYU, Idaho. In the chapter, they discuss some of the approaches to family life education. They talk about the expert approach, the facilitator, the critical inquirer, the collaborator, the interventionist, and the eclectic approach. I mostly identify with the collaborator approach as I've used it in teaching Sunday school and other lessons, primary, and a workshop that I taught here in my area on music. But I would really like to develop more of an eclectic approach. This incorporates some elements of the other approaches so that you're better able to assess how that audience needs you to deliver the information and how they will best learn from that information. And so I hope to get better at having an eclectic approach. They talked about in this chapter developing working philosophies of family life education and writing those down. And this reminded me of a therapy program that a loved one is enrolled in. In this program, my loved one is required to write down every day why they are fighting for change. And it's powerful. Writing things down really does help facilitate change, and it helps us understand better what our philosophies, what our goals are, and why we are doing what we are doing. It talks about in this chapter beliefs about family, the purpose of family life education, content, and process of learning. I believe that we know as Latter-day Saints the nature of family. We know that it's divinely appointed, and I believe that family life education is to help, the purpose is to help educate and strengthen families against life's challenges that might otherwise threaten to destroy them. I believe that the content that we teach should be scholarly based because it lends credibility to family life education, it ensures correct principles are taught, and it relieves us as educator of the burden of proof, because sound research is hard to dispute. In chapter 2, they talk a lot about designing family life education programs. And there's 3 levels of prevention that they talk about: primary, secondary, and tertiary. I have chosen the family relations option, and in that I feel that I will mainly be working with people at the primary and secondary level. And at those levels, the primary is the level where families are doing well, and they just need maybe some more education to help strengthen relationships before serious issues develop. Secondary, we may be working with some at this level. This is helping families already at risk, and the program will help prevent more serious issues from developing. The prevention education models that they shared should incorporate the content, instructional process, implementation process, and evaluation. And this is the format that I'm trying to follow for my family relations option that I've chosen to do. So I'm going to need to do appropriate research, develop sound lesson plans, meet my participants' needs, and evaluate if the program actually helped a participant. And this is following the steps that were outlined in this chapter. Chapter 16 talks a lot about marketing. And at first I thought, oh, I'm doing the family relations option. It's not really that important. And then I realized that it's actually very important. We must effectively market the programs that we are going to try and present in our areas. I was invited to teach a couple of times now at Portland's Regional Music Workshop. At first, the marketing they did for this was not very successful until the committee had participants fill out surveys. And they took those surveys and realized that people were asking for different types of classes that weren't being offered. And so they started offering those classes, and they drew in more participants. Now, the same workshop needs to do better at honing in on positioning their product or answering the question, what's in it for me? If people don't feel that they're going to get anything out of a workshop or a program, they're not going to take the time to do it. And so as family life educators, that's going to be a really crucial aspect. Chapter 18 talks a lot about improving family life education practices. They started out talking about professionalization. And this reminded me of the blank look I get when I tell people my major. I almost always have to explain what it is and what I'll do with it when I graduate. If I say, oh, I'm a marriage and family studies major, oh, that's nice. Until I tell them, you know, what I can do with it, that I can be a family life educator, that I can help educate people in the public about family relations, things that will strengthen and help families. And then, oh, okay, that's great. And they really understand it. And so this emphasized to me the need of really raising the bar and helping people become aware of what family life education is and what it can do for people. This led me to think and ask myself, how can I be more proactive about my work? And so I developed some goals for myself that I really want to follow some of the suggestions in the readings. And I would like to find out companies in my local area that would be interested in supporting family life education programs amongst their own employees. I'd like to partner with family life educators in my area to market and host classes for the community at local schools and community centers. And I'd like to contact legislators about local policies affecting families. Also, in my area, I live in a very diverse area, so I'm going to need to be careful how I approach the topics of families and family life. I'll need to make sure I'm educated about how people perceive families and what they're really needing in their own lives. The last thing is the Appendix A. And in this appendix, we covered several principles, and a few that I wanted to touch on were the first one was empathy. This made me think of a live therapy session that I viewed in my Family 360 class. Brother Higgins, who was on staff at BYU Idaho and also a therapist, showed some great empathy for a 17-year-old young man in this therapy session. And it really opened my eyes to the power of what therapy can do, or what empathy can do in a therapy or counseling session. And I believe as family life educators, we should have that same type of empathy towards the people we're teaching. They talked about integrity. And I teach this on a daily basis to my children, that they need to keep their word if they want people to trust and respect them. So I really feel that integrity is very important. They talked about chaos, and this made me think of Brother Gardner's video from Family 400. And in it, he showed how he had 4 people stand inside a large cloth tube of Lycra. And they were instructed to move towards and then away from each other, but kind of in this fashion, so that they were all, you know, at risk for hitting into one another. And then they had to get faster and faster at it. And sure enough, it resulted in chaos. And it just illustrated that sometimes families are going to experience chaos and things are not always going to be perfect. And it's important to remember that as family life educators. And lastly, I wanted to talk about legacy. Legacy is the focus on other people, turning out from oneself and focusing on serving others. And it made me think of Christ's quote, "Whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall save it." Christ lived by this principle, and I feel that as family life educators, we will be more successful as we follow his example and do the same. Thanks for watching.